We are glad to see you again in St. Petersburg. We haven't seen each other for a long of years. So can you introduce yourself and tell please a few words about you? What do you do? What's your job?
Sure. First of all, I'm delighted to be back in St. Petersburg. And I started this journey with this relationship therapy, Emago relationship therapy, back in 2001. And gosh, it's been quite a while now since I've returned. And I'm actually a senior faculty person from the Emago Training Institute. That's a global training institute for couples and relationship therapy. And I'm from Washington, D.C. I'm a senior faculty person. And my job basically is to train therapists and couples and professionals about how to have safe, passionate, connected relationships. And so I've been coming here since, 2001, and actually training therapists here in St. Petersburg and Moscow, actually from around Russia, in this modality, starting in 2005. So I'm delighted to be back now so we can train some more.
So what is Emago therapy?
Emago relationship therapy is actually a modality to help therapists and couples immediately connect and reestablish a feeling of connectedness and understanding each other. It's a series of skills that really kind of fit any modality, but with Emago relationship therapy, couples reconnect very quickly through what we call a dialogue process. And in this form of work, the most important thing that a couple, an individual, or anyone is learning to kind of relate to is to think about the relationship. So many of us have always thought about, well, what do I want? What do I think? What should I do? And in Emago relationship therapy, what happens now is we start to think, what's best for my relationship? How am I affecting my relationship? And what do I need to do to make this relational space safer and more passionate? And so what happens in this form of work is reestablishing for a couple or friendships or anywhere that safe understanding of somebody who's actually different than us.
So what does this interesting word Emago means?
Well, Emago is actually just Latin for the word image, because all of us have an internalized image of what love looks like, feels like, seems familiar, that makes it feel familiar to us. So all of us have this internalized image, and that's just the word for image, Emago. And it's really based on the fact that we are always looking for someone who fits our image of love, which actually we got in childhood pretty much based on the people who loved us first, mom and dad. And so we are always seeking somebody who fits this internalized relationship in the very best way that feels familiar and wonderful, and also in the way that might have hurt us, wounded us, or left us wanting more in our childhood. And so we have this Emago, and it actually is what leads us and attracts us to someone in that romantic falling in love phase.
How could it be interesting for professional psychologists?
Oh my gosh, this is the most wonderful thing in the world for therapists and psychologists, because we, and I'm one of them, we never really learned how to work with couples. All of us were trained how to work with an individual. And actually, it's the scariest thing, if we're honest, of having to work with a couple, because they, by the time they come to our office, are usually arguing, fighting, on the verge of divorce, on the verge of breakup. And we have not had the tools to help a couple actually experience that wonderful feeling of reconnecting. And so what most of us therapists have done is try to negotiate, try to logically resolve an issue. Never works. Never works. And so what happens for us professionals is that we split people up and they go to individual therapy. But what happens there, and research tells us this, more couples break up and divorce if they go to individual therapy to work on their relationship. So these skills, amazing for professionals, right away in that very first session, help couples feel safe enough to start to reconnect and feel hope. Because they've lost a lot of hope by the time they come to us, but they will feel hopeful right away when the therapist starts to facilitate the skills of reconnecting through dialogue.
What can you say to people who would like to study Emago therapy?
Well, of course, I'm a little biased. I think we should all study Emago therapy because I know how much I needed it, not only in my professional life, but I actually needed it in my personal life as well, because we're all relational people. And it's actually very hard and very confusing for all of us about what to do when our relationships start to feel conflictual. And nobody actually ever told us that it's inevitable that after that bliss of the romantic phase that we're all going to end up in some conflict. Nobody ever told us. And so we thought that that meant we were with the wrong people. And so I would want professionals and individuals to know that if you have conflict in your relationship, you're probably with the right person. And most of us are good people doing our best, but we actually don't have the skills to get through those painful conflictual times. And that's the real gift of Emago relationship therapy, to actually normalize and transform conflict into more passionate connection. And this is a huge thing that no one ever told us. And what happens is when we have conflict, we end up breaking up, and unfortunately, we start the same cycle over with the next person. So this is a wonderful opportunity for couples and all of us professionals to actually move into a more conscious state about what's trying to happen in our relationships and with conflict.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I'm so glad you're interested.